Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Be to Lead conversation. I am so happy and honored to have an amazing guest today, Hazel Herrington. Hi, Hazel. Welcome to the Be
Good.
to Lead conversation.
Good afternoon, Barbara. I'm so excited to be on your podcast show today, and I know we're going to have a lot of fun.
We are going to have a lot of fun, and everybody. Hazel is a CEO and founder at Herrington Publications Worldwide, and she has an amazing story to share with us today. Hazel, why don't you introduce yourself? You have so much to share, and I didn't even know where to start, so I'll let you do that introduction.
Okay. Well, my name is Hazel Herrington, and I'm the founder of Herrington Publications Worldwide. We publish books, magazines. We also run global events, and these events focus particularly on women leaders and women entrepreneurs. And these events are created to empower women to become the leaders that they were born to be, and to also put them in front of the right audience so that they can build powerful, competitive brands. Now, besides that, I'm also multiple award-winning entrepreneur. I've won multiple awards and also nominated for a lot of awards. And one of the most important awards that I recently won a month ago was the Migrant Achiever Awards here in Australia
Mm,
for
awesome.
entrepreneurship. So that was like really an exciting award because as a migrant woman moving from Zimbabwe to Australia, making an impact for migrant women was very important for me.
That is wonderful. And Hazel has been modest. She has won multiple awards. Let me mention a couple for you. Apart from the last one you just mentioned, Hazel was awarded the Top 100 Most Successful Women Award and the Top 1% Global Exemplary Leaders Award. So, congratulations, Hazel. And we are so happy to have you here. So, here is the first question that I have for you. Have you always wanted to be where you are today? This is where you wanted to land. This is the career you wanted to have, or was life that intersected your desires and took you where you are today?
Okay. Barbara, I knew from when I was young, about 8 years old, that I was going to be somebody great. And I believe that there's still more to come. I believe that I've just been in training for a bigger role that I've always destined to be. When I was young, I'd always have dreams where a crown was being put on my head and I'd be lifted up in the air, not once, but like three times.
Mm.
So I knew I was special because the crown would come moving and it would come on my head and pass all my siblings. So for me, I knew I was special. And then when I started going to school, I was always excelling in sport and joined clubs and was always in a position of leadership wherever I went. So the leadership potential was always there. I always excelled. Oh my
That's the beauty of being live.
I'm so sorry about that.
No worries,
So
no worries.
yeah, that's technology, and I'll tell you this is that so I knew that I was going to be someone special and joined all these clubs, excelled in sport. And it wasn't easy because we all know that when you are being built to become a global leader, you will always face challenges. And that's what shapes you and molds you into being a great leader. So, in answering your question, yes, I believe that I always knew that I would be a great leader. Am I happy with where I am today? Definitely. And yeah.
Yeah, and that's beautiful what you say. Um, I knew I was trained for something big, and you have always known that. Excuse me. So, if you look back now from where you are today, and you look back at your story, what have been, in your opinion, those key moments that I call sliding doors moment that actually built you, your life, your career, and made you to who you are today? Key moments where if you decided differently, you would not be where you are today.
Okay, so I'll start off with definitely high school. I learned how to be tenacious. and to not give up by actually doing diving, platform diving off a 1 meter board. So I learned how to do a reverse somersault. I learned how to do a forward somersault and a double 1.5 and a twist. But it was the training that really shaped me into the leader that I am today, because I needed to train extra hours compared to the other students that were there. I already had a lady that was way advanced, and she was diving for the school because she did gymnastics when she was young. So I had to train extra hours, to try and, beat her. And what eventually happened is that I ended up really doing so well. It took a while, about 6 months, and then the following year, when we did the trials, I managed to actually beat her. But in the training, you see, I couldn't do the same dives. It's called the degree of difficulty that she was doing. I had to learn a greater degree of difficulty so that I could actually excel and so that she wouldn't be able to catch up. That taught me diligence, working hard. So that's the first phase. The second phase was definitely going into working with women and youth in Zimbabwe before I moved to Australia. When I started these charities in Zimbabwe, I thought it was going to be a walk in the park. It wasn't, because we started going into prisons, going into schools, and empowering women. My first experience in prison, I always share it, it was a scary moment, because yes, you've got the vision and the goals, but then when you actually now start going into the prisons, the fear comes in, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. And then I'll say it again. But I had to overcome that fear because I was speaking to 5,000 men. But the reality is that if I was not able to speak to these 5,000 men, I wouldn't even been able to believe that I could go to Australia and make it and become a leader. So, like I say, it was a progressive journey, empowering youth as well. Then marriage also taught me a lot, that sometimes things don't always work out the way you plan them, but you can begin again. I mean, there be women that are listening to me right now and things are falling apart. You can start again. It's amazing how I started again, moved to Australia, and I'm still moving forward. My destiny is still bright.
That's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. So I hear you speaking about three key moments that you have identified and that shaped you in the way you are today. Training, you say, right? Training in sport. So the diligence, the working hard. You speak about the charity in prison when you went there, right? The activities you created, and then how do I face and overcome fear of failure or fear of the unknown? Then suddenly you experience, and then the beginning again experience. So I would like to dive a little bit deeper into these three moments, because they are very, very important for everybody, because they teach you skills that are invaluable, right? So if you look back at the training, what happened inside of you so that you could be resilient in training, and you could continue with the working hard and with the diligence? What is it that happened within you so that you didn't say, oh, it is too difficult, or no, that's too hard, I'm not going to do it? So what was the difference that made a difference inside of you, that made you continue with the training and do that extra hour, that extra mile? What would you say was the difference there?
All right. I'll just mention the third one was meeting Mel Gibson, Hollywood A-list actor, because I think I mentioned two. So for me, I'll start off with the diving, because, platform diving is not easy, because you've got to be able to perform each dive accurately and not splash. So it's, in other words, I had to learn excellence, posture. And it took a lot of, like I said to you, diligence, practice, and not giving up. And so we've got women watching, and it's like going to the gym. You got to keep at it. You'll fail, but you got to keep at it. Can you imagine going for training every day, 2 to 3 hours, trying to perfect a dive? And with that platform diving, it's determined by the amount of splashes you make and your entry. So it's practice and practice and practice. And I always say this is that failure is doesn't mean that you have to give up, because when you fail, you now know how to do it right. So that's in terms of platform diving. And by the way, there's a lot of times where you sting yourself, you hit the water. I could have given up, especially when you're learning how to do a twist. A 1.5 somersault with a twist. Oh my gosh, that was hard. And then in terms of going into prisons, I had to really, as soon as I walked out into the courtyard, we had 5,000 men, and they were all sitting in the sun and they were looking. The reality is that I knew I had to deliver, because I wasn't speaking to women. I was now speaking to prisoners, and they're watching and they're looking and they're like, what's this woman coming to teach us? But I went for it. A part of me wanted to give up and walk away, and or maybe delegate it to one of my volunteers and assistants. But then I was like, I'm going to do this. I can do it. And the reality is, there's also fear that, okay, some of these people have committed like heinous crimes, and I'm here. What would happen? Like, just say something goes wrong. But I overcame the fear, because fear is just it's all about mindset. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of, will they like me? So I overcame that. And then meeting Mel Gibson in Hollywood, I actually wept and I cried, because I couldn't believe that I had made it to Hollywood. Everybody wants to make it to Hollywood. Everybody's striving to make it to Hollywood. And I've not only met Mel Gibson, but a lot of celebrities. I've interviewed Mel Gibson, Charlie Sheen, Jason Alexander. But here it is. I cried because I'd gone further than anybody else in my family had been. And I realized that, yes, all things are possible if you just believe.
This is very powerful, everything that you said. Let me go one step back and then I come back to Mel Gibson. You said when you were talking to these inmates in prison, you overcame fear. What does that mean? Does it mean that you started speaking with them and suddenly fear disappeared in you? Does it mean that you felt the fear even when you were teaching and speaking to them, and you kept going, and so courage maybe emerged, and fear became a backstage element? So if you had to look back now, what would you say the dynamic was, so that you can say, I overcame fear, so that when people, maybe we won't find ourselves not speaking in front of an audience, let's say in prison, but still we might experience fear, so that we can learn how to overcome it and what that actually means. So that if you had to say, Barbara, here it is how I teach you to do it, what would you say happened within you? Was just the action of speaking despite the fear? What was that? If you can point at something that made a difference in that context. And then I have a question for Mel Gibson.
Well, Barbara, the first element of fear I felt was when I walked into the prison, because they unlock the gates and then you walk in, then you've got these like 6-foot walls, and I'd never been into a prison. So there was the fear of, oh my gosh, what if something goes wrong, So that was the first fear. And then they lock the doors, behind you, and you're like, oh my gosh. And you watch all these movies and you're like, what if something goes wrong? That was the first fear, but I overcame that, and I went into the courtyard. Then the second phase of fear I felt was, I saw all these men standing out there. That, every public speaker has a fear of, am I going to deliver? Will they like me? Will the message that I have today resonate with them? But you know what? It was a huge success, because I knew that these men, they needed to hear a word of encouragement, because some of them are in there 10, 15 years. Some of them may not even get out of prison, but they've been told how bad they are. And so I was there, to bring a message of hope that, yes, they can be a better dad. Yes, they can be a better husband. It's not over for them.
Beautiful. So what I hear you saying is, yes, I had the fear. It was a new environment. It was a first experience for me. But what I actually did, I trusted in myself. I trusted in what I could deliver. I knew that I was there for them and I could help them somehow. And so instead of listening to the fear, you focus on what you could give and trust and believed in what you were able to deliver and what the gifts somehow that you have for them. That's, I think that is very important, because so sometimes when we are experiencing fear, we keep focus on fear, whereas what we want to do is move ourselves towards what's going to happen and what we can give. So that is precious. Thank you for sharing this, Hazel. And now let's go back to Mel Gibson experience, right? You said it was very emotional when you interviewed him, and you realized that you made it somehow and you achieved much more than anybody in your family achieved. What would you say was the lessons there in that very moment? You are right. Many people desire to connect with Hollywood and meet these people, these public figures that we all see on TV or on internet. So, what was the lessons that you learned once you arrived at that point? When you had that interview, it was a success. You were, I'm sure, very proud of yourself and what you have achieved. So, again, looking back at that moment, if you had to teach us what you have learned in that moment, what was the lessons there?
The lessons I learned is that nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible as long as you are willing to put in the hard work. I
Mhm.
learned that investing in yourself is very important. I learned that even when I was in Hollywood and I was weeping, and before I went on stage, and when I started speaking to him, the reality hit me that he's just like any other human being who deserves respect. It's different because when you look at celebrities, there's a persona that, you know what I mean, they an unrealistic persona, that they don't live normal lives like we do. But after you speak to the celebrities, they're just normal, they're just like us. And for me, that was important. It was important because the reality is that success is not determined by whether you go to Hollywood or not. That's the reality. Success is having healthy relationships, friendships, and just being happy with yourself. I'm happy with myself. Now, if I get invited to a Netflix party or not, it's not going to change my life. I'm not gonna be sad if I don't, you know. And if anything, and this is something for me, it's not for everybody. But I would rather be where I am today than living in Hollywood and living the celebrity life. I just want to be a mom to my daughter and have my family around me and just be there for each other. That's what's important to me.
And perhaps what I also learned from your experience is that sometimes we think that what we constantly see and we desire is what we would actually want and what would make us happy. And in fact, it might not be the case. So maybe keeping the awareness of a distinction between what we see and what we perceive might be what we want, and searching and exploring what we actually want that would make us happy and will give us a chance to contribute, because where you are today, you can contribute so much to many advancement of women in many areas of life, corporate politics. I know you are involved in many of these activities, so we need people like you in this context. So to take you where you are today, Hazel, would you say you had mentors or role models that you follow? Did you look for mentors or role models? And what is your view with respect to that?
I've got to give you this. American coaches, mentors are the best in the world. I've had the privilege of working with a business coach in America from the JT Fox organization. He taught me a lot about marketing and branding that nobody else would be able to teach me. Like he says, you're only as good as your coach. It was a bit tough, but sometimes you need that discipline and somebody to help you and guide you along the way, because when it's too easy you relax. So I learned a lot from him, traveling the world, watching how they were running the events, and I give credit to them as well. I also had a coach in America as well, who taught me when I was studying the publishing company as well. And I tell you is that they have a spirit of excellence that is beyond what I've ever seen. It is foolishness to say you've achieved success by yourself. So those were my coaches and mentors in business. Now, the reality is that I also had spiritual coaches. I've always been active in church ministry, and that teaches you how to create the balance in terms of you can burn out, you can lose sight of what's important, but having that church family for me was also important. So yeah.
And what would you recommend? So you were blessed, it looks like, with very exciting and inspiring, mentors for you, right? Did you look for them, or you just came across these amazing people and then the mentorship relationship started? If you had to give any suggestion to other women and men that maybe are considering mentors and role models, and they maybe are thinking to themselves, well, I don't know where to find them. How was the experience of finding them? You actually looked for them? Did you meet them by chance, or how was that, and what would you recommend to do?
I think because of my experience, I was always very active in sport, like I said, besides diving, hockey, and I knew the power of a coach and a mentor. So after I moved to Australia, I decided, okay, listen, I've got this money that I received for my divorce settlement. What am I going to do? Do I start a business? Do I get a coach? So I decided, instead of starting a business without the know-how, because I'd gone back to university as well, I might as well get a coach. So I went looking for a coach, and I saw some ads on social media, and definitely went to the business workshop, and the rest is history, because they helped me achieve my goals faster. I think in less than 3 months, I was speaking on a platform with Africa's first billionaire. So there is power in coaches. You get to your destination faster. There's a lot of hand holding. And the reality is that if you look at all the famous sportsmen, they've got a coach. They've got a coach, and they put in the hours. And it's also, you can have a coach, you realize, Barbara, but sometimes people don't listen. Is that, are you listening? Are you coachable? That's where the secret is.
Yes, I totally agree. I am a coach myself, and I love when I am interacting with a client that is committed, that wants to put in the hour, that actually is not afraid of going the extra mile and push beyond the comfort zone. And that's amazing, because, as you said, in 3 months, you achieve what you didn't even think about. And so that's the power of it. So the suggestion is do an extra effort, if we can say so, and just look for a coach, a mentor that might actually push you a little bit beyond your comfort zone, so that you can achieve what it might seem impossible. That's awesome. And Hazel, throughout your career, we have heard so many times about roadblocks for women in leadership, and the difference that many women have experienced with respect to men, and how men have it easier, the usual conversation. I would like to ask you, what is your experience with respect to men leaders, and what would you invite men that are in leadership position to do to support the advancement of women in leadership? There are many men that contribute and collaborate, and yet I think that women, we need to speak up a little bit more and let them know what would be something that we would appreciate, and vice versa. It would be great to have their perspective as well, but we are here with you today. So what would you suggest men leaders to do differently, or to start doing or stop doing, in order to collaborate in a new way with women and allow a new generation of leaders to show up?
Okay. Well, with my organization, Herrington Publications Worldwide, we've decided to work with men. I believe that there's so many women empowerment programs, and women, okay, we still need to achieve gender equality, but I think we need to work together. It's important for us to work together so that gender equality can move forward, especially in Africa. Statistics show that gender equality is actually moving backwards in Africa, and that's troubling. And that is why I'm working with men. We've introduced a men's magazine, and we're going to be doing men's speaking events. And I just realized that I can't do it without the men. I don't want to be the strong woman without a man by my side. I've made that decision, and that's my decision. I want the men alongside with me, and I believe that together we are stronger, we can create change, and that is the new vision for Herrington Publications Worldwide. We are not doing it alone as women. We want to build strong families that are whole with a father and a mother. We don't want strong women that with absent fathers. So I've decided to change the vision of Herrington Publications Worldwide. We are working with men, and it's as soon as November, our next event. And so we're excited about it. And I'll tell you why I changed. One woman approached me and said, Hazel, do you hate men? I'm like, no, I don't. She's like, yeah, but you're talking about empowerment and you're talking about what? And the men are now quiet, they're shying away, and they're afraid that if we talk, if we even just offend them, then it's like we're discriminating or whatever it is. And that's not what we want. We don't want to disempower the men. And I keep saying, for me, I want to move forward with the men by my side.
Absolutely. And I think that that's what we actually want. The majority would want to collaborate, a new form of collaboration, a new discovery, probably, of the nature, the identity of the person. Let's talk about the person. Let's not even talk about men and women. Let's talk about the person, and having the possibility to really discover who we are and collaborate in new way. That is amazing. So congratulations for your decisions and for the new direction of your company. One last question, Hazel. You have a daughter, right? So I don't know if you have other children, but what would you tell your daughter if you had one piece of advice that you are allowed to tell her, just one piece of advice, so that her life can blossom and she can become a new kind of leader? What would you tell her?
My best advice to my daughter is learn from the people that have been there before you, learn from your elders, because we've got a generation that doesn't want to learn from people that have been there before. They think they know it all. They are rebellious, and they want quick gratification. But a white beard, white hair symbolizes something great. I've been hurt. I've had challenges. I've overcome them. And that is why I'm still standing. We've got a lot of people that died young. They graveyards. If you look at the tombstone, lived 20 years. Those are the young people that didn't listen, drinking and driving, rebellious. I always say to my daughter, learn from people that have been there before you. They have got a wealth of wisdom. And I've done that. In spiritual matters, I listen to Joyce Meyer because she's been through it all. In business matters, we listen to the Brian Tracy, my favorite. Listen to my mentors and my coaches. They've been there. Why must I try and do it my way and fail? And yet they've been there. They've gone ahead of me. Brian Tracy is a champion in sales. He's the champion when it comes to speaking engagements. I'll do it I listen to his advice, take his advice, and then I'll add my own uniqueness to it.
It's beautiful. And I assume that you would give the same advice if you had a son as well. Or would you say something slightly different to a boy?
What I would say to my son is stay away from strong drink, drugs, alcohol. And this is not to say that the women, I don't know why, but I think it's different for women and men because I've seen it damage a lot of people's lives. I believe that strong drink is for people that are depressed, that don't know how to control their emotions. We're not talking about social drinking. Yeah, we're talking about, addictions. Be careful. You may be watching this and you're in business and you have to have a drink every day. That's a problem, And so I would just encourage the men that are watching. I always say, If you can't do without it, there's a problem.
Yeah. So being aware that sometimes in order to conform to some social situation, we can then damage ourselves without being aware of it slightly. So that's a beautiful advice as well. So Hazel, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close our conversation that I haven't asked you, or and that you would want to share?
Yeah. Barbara, one day this video, I like to believe, will be on the internet. And they'll
Yes.
say, and I'll be gone and be like, what was the most important thing that Hazel said? What I've learned? And, a lot of people don't want to discuss this topic, or they think, oh, no, it shouldn't be the platform. But for me, it's important for me to share that of everything that I realized in my whole life, that for me, the most important person in my life is Jesus Christ. And when I received him, my life has changed. And my desire is to make sure that when I die, I've lived a life that pleased him, and that was lived a life of purpose and made an impact on this earth, and fulfilled my destiny and fulfilled my assignment that he gave me. Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Hazel. It was great to have you here. Thank you for sharing your story, your great advice, and how can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yes, you can email me at info@herringtonpublications.com. If you want to learn more about what we do in terms of publishing events, go to herringtonpublications.com.
That's beautiful. So everybody, thank you so much. Thank you, Hazel, again for being here. And I hopefully we'll have another opportunity to have another conversation, Hazel. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.